Hello and welcome again to another live. Where did your name go? A moment ago you had your name on here, Dave. Can you pop it back on again, please? Is that an option?
I'll try.
We were sat there waffling for a moment and nearly missed going live, and suddenly, whoa, here we go. As I was just saying to Dave, I hope that my laptop stays alive because it started flickering a little bit, and I know that the connection where I have my, the connection to the mains is not working perfectly. Oh, and Dave left us all of a sudden. Don't know what happened there. I'm sure he will be back, and I will put a hat on just because I can. Ah, here he is. Let's go again. I don't know what happened to you. You decided to leave.
No, I tried to be clever, and it's backfired massively. But never mind. I can't. Don't worry about my name. I can't get my head around this. It's.
But it was there a moment ago. Yeah. It's really peculiar.
Yeah, I tried to sign in because I've got an account myself, and what I did, I pressed the login feature, and it just sent me back somewhere else. And I thought, oh well, it's. I don't have many options to change the name other than new stock.com settings. I had a look at that. We'll have to go with it as it is, unless you know how to change this. It's not.
I have no idea. Yeah. As you can see, I've put on a hat just because I can. We know me in the hats, don't we?
That's how you roll.
So today's question is intellectual capital an asset? And I don't know about you, but I'm somebody who actually refers to intellectual property as intellectual capital. So what is your take on this question today?
You can't put it on a balance sheet to my knowledge. But depending on who you look, if you do a simple search with Google or any other search engine to actually find out what these things are, I use a service called Investopia quite a bit, and I find it very helpful.
You fell out.
Helpful for quite definitive, where it says yes, it is an asset.
You fell out for a moment there.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm sort of I'm torn. And this is kind of a lot of stuff I'm learning from you.
Yeah.
In terms of, how do you protect an idea and so on?
Well,
and once the idea is out, what next?
So the thing is, in my world, sorry, Dave, I'm just cutting across you here because you've fallen out. Sorry, you fell out, so I was just cutting across you for a moment. Sorry about that. So what we say in my world is that, well, I'm somebody who referred to intellectual capital as intellectual property as intellectual capital, and as such, I would say that it is an asset. I know that you can't put it in the books. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah. When you now, I'm no expert in accountancy. My father was. He was a very good chartered accountant back in the day. And had I been able to get hold of him in the week, I'd have discussed this matter with him. But I'm just being brought up that if you cannot record it on some type of ledger, whatever that looks like, it's kind of irrelevant. It in some halves, it can be hard for it to be, dare I say it, proven as an asset. I don't really know. And it's like anything, you'll always get that 50-50 split on the view of it.
Yeah.
Many will say no, and many others will say, yeah, of course it is. I mean, when you've got things like what's happening in the crypto world, for argument's sake, at the moment, with the likes of the SEC that are deciding for whether certain cryptos are a security or not, deciding what is and what isn't an asset is becoming more and more difficult as technology is advancing. So that's perhaps my overview view on most things when it's an asset class or to be considered as. So I don't know whether that answers your question or not, but that's kind of where I'm sitting on it at the moment.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, because on the one hand, it is intangible, and on the other hand, it helps enhance the value of the business.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you think about the intellectual property, if you don't have a registered trademark, then if you're wanting to sell your business, the goodwill will be written in the books as being zero. Whereas if you have a registered trademark, the value goes up massively. So it's about understanding what it is that you've got, and then have some of these evaluating companies that are out there help you figure out what the value is.
Yeah, as you were talking, and we've had discussions sort of over WhatsApp and phone in the past on creativity. It's likely at some point there will be somebody that will have that creative genius to come out and go, this is how we do it, so it will benefit everyone. How and when, I have no idea. Will this be some really, really smart lawyer somewhere that thinks way outside the box, that can convince enough people in his sector to actually go with it? Because that's all it will take.
Yeah. And people are also at the moment questioning, and this is a little bit different.
There are some that will think that way.
This is a little bit different. Like, there are people who are afraid that the legal business as it is known today will completely change. And of course, I mean, with all the technology that's happening, of course, a lot of things are changing, and also the legal industry, as it were. And there's no point in being afraid of it, because if we're afraid, then we freeze, and then we can't evolve and get new ideas. Whereas if we stay alert and, okay, this is what's happening, so let's just roll with it and see what happens, where it takes us.
Yeah, I mean, to flip something back to you, if in your mind and how you see things and how you deal with things and what have you, if those floodgates were to open, would that make your work easier? Would it add more complication? Does it add transparency? Does it take any of it away? I don't really know. So that's something that's that I'd sort of put back to you. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
So some of it will be made easier. Like, for instance, if we were able to put trademarks onto the blockchain, I think that will make it so much easier, because if I have understood this correctly from your explanations to me, it means that it will be much harder for people to infringe on the trademarks once they're on the blockchain, and it will be much easier to stop people. Well, people can't put anything on there. Well, they may be able to put something on there, but it'll be faster to track if it's something that infringes upon something that's already registered as a trademark, which is already on the blockchain, so to speak. So I do believe that some of the things will be made easier. I don't know if I would ever want an AI to represent me in court, because of the fact that it lacks human emotion.
Yes.
So, like, I know I've mentioned this to you before, this thing about there was a case while I was studying the law where this man, in a jealous rage, killed his wife and his 2 children because she wanted to leave him, or something similar to that. And he then tried to kill himself, but all he managed to do was blow away the lower part of his face. And when it came to the court case, they didn't punish him further than that, because they decided, and this is the human emotion, this is the human side of things, that looking into the mirror every single day, he would be reminded of what he'd done. And that was punishment enough. You know, AI will not look at it the same way. So that is why, you know, some of it will be okay to have AI help us solve, and some of it just won't. And that's just the way it is. You know, it's the same with any other creative occupation.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting point you raised there, Celeste. With AI, as I keep saying to everybody, you know, yes, it's different, it's new. There's all this razzmatazz about it at the moment. It's not actually new. It's been around for 60 odd years.
Yeah.
The way that we're using the technology is getting smarter. But, and I say this to everyone. So here's a scenario. I've just landed from Mars onto Great Britain.
Yeah.
And I'm hungry and I want something to eat. So I will go up and find somebody, and I just happen to talk English, and go, where is good for something to eat?
Yeah.
And they will tell me where they consider where something is good to eat. The better question is, my dietary requirements are this, and this.
Exactly.
I can't have that, blah, 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 blah.
I can't have coffee anymore, for instance.
Yeah. You'll get a more defined answer, which is where AI can be very, very helpful. So if you do a generic search on whether it's Bing or Brave or Google, any of those big search engines, you get a lot of stuff sent to you. But you can't ask it back, great, got some of this, can you dig a little bit deeper? It just doesn't understand that. But when it's integrated with AI, which Bing are now doing, that makes it a little bit easier to get to actually where you want to go. Because many times, and I was doing some research before jumping on here, I put in your question just to see what was brought up, and there was a plethora of stuff. There was loads. And I thought to myself, well, Investopia is one I trust. I like what they do. I understand it. They write it in layman's. That will do. I'll have a little look through that. But in time, as we prompt the AI to get better, it will get better. However, if you're Brian May from Queen and you're in the middle of a concert and you're just about to play a guitar solo, and I'm talking as a musician, those solos are different every time they play it. It's impromptu, you know, it's of the moment. AI can't do that. So you're right. It cannot make that emotive decision there and then. I mean, it's interesting you talked about the court case. I've read recently that there's one, I can't remember if it's started or it's due to start this week, where somebody is going to be represented by a bot in court in America. I mean, that's mad. But also last week, I read where a judge used ChatGPT to literally give him a decision on whether to pass sentence on this particular case. I think it was in Colombia, in Bogota, yeah. So different legal systems throughout the world and how they're viewed and carried out are varied for a long period of time. You know, we've got different laws in different countries. And even now, with the way that the internet is going, it's very difficult for people to keep a handle on all these things, isn't it? You know, where something can happen in America, there could be a different scenario here in Britain and maybe in Denmark and Europe and all the rest of it. It's very, very difficult. And I think in terms of that compass point, when we go, look, we all know that a house is an asset because we've had to pay some money for it. That's the result. Businesses, they're basically the same, aren't we? We invest into it, it grows, it's an asset that one sells on. But when somebody wakes up with that eureka moment and go, do you know what? The wheel as a round thing isn't very productive. I've come up with a reason why a square one's going to be better. I mean, to me, that doesn't sound very, very plausible, but just give it an extreme example. And they can prove it, then there you go. But it's once that is put onto a piece of paper,
Yeah.
whether paper as we knew it back in the day or the digital version, until such times, you've got to learn to keep your gob shut or post it somewhere really secure that no one else can see. And maybe some of these new tools that we've got, like blockchain, for example, can be a way of, look, that's my idea. I want to lock it up for the time being until such times when I'm ready to release it.
Yeah.
Because for all things equal, anything in technology, until it gets adoption, is a good idea. It's all right as the time being. I mean, going back to ChatGPT, since that was launched, if that's the right word, on the 30th of November last year, 1 million people started to use it in the first 5 days. There's many more that have registered for the paid version. Now that it's on Bing and it's been integrated, I've now managed to get into that and get that to work. That's been helpful, but it's not something I'd rely on. But then I read somewhere that it's prompted people globally in the tune of 500 million, so not small numbers, to use artificial intelligence because they're now more aware of it. So once that gets bigger, it will probably force people's hands in terms of, we've got to start thinking a little bit different, whether it's challenging or not. We can kind of not worry about that consequences later, but we'll deal with that as and when the time permits.
Yeah.
And this is the same for everything. Absolutely everything. If you wake up and sit down on a platform like this and decide to spout a load of stuff that no one else knows, is that wise? Well, it depends what you define as wise.
Yeah, people might consider this whole thing that I'm sharing, my knowledge about trademarks and intellectual property, this way completely mad. And that's okay, this is my channel, so I do what I want.
Yeah. I mean,
as long as it's legal and as long as it's not profanity and stuff like that, I think that it's okay, you know.
I mean, this is the lovely journey I'm on at the moment, where I've got two sectors of my brain that seem to be having a fight with each other. Where I've got the creative bit that loves all this new emerging technology and endorse it and so forth. I'm not ashamed to admit I love stuff like blockchain. I love crypto. I like NFTs. All these new sort of, a lot of people are saying that fad's gone now. It's not even started yet. And AI has kicked in, and I also like the more traditional routes. I come from a regulated insurance background. I understand that, and I'm learning a lot about what you do. Trademarks to me make complete sense.
Yeah,
I've got a connection in America that he's into the environmental issues of bits and pieces. He's heavily into ESG. It's what he does for a living, and he's got another angle for companies where, if you can prove you're sustainable and so forth, you're going to get better business. Well, that's a no-brainer. Everyone should. And whilst they're there, they need to protect themselves on top, which is where you guys come in with what you do. And it does make sense. I don't have to sit down and peel the bits away. If I understand risk, which is what I've done all my life, everybody needs to understand risk. And once they've got that, they find someone who can actually help them deal with that risk as and when that comes. So from a company perspective, I've got that eureka moment, that light bulb thing that pops up, my idea. I should be coming to speak to you about, I've got this idea, these are my concerns, help me.
Yeah.
And if we can help lots of people understand and reach those people more going forward, this has got to be a good thing. Yes, I know that certain countries have got certain laws and so forth that will differ from one place to another. That's fine. But if we understand the risk and apply that as far afield as we can, that's got to be a good thing. And what you do and what I've learned from what you do is astonishing.
Thank you.
It is. And I'm not one of these guys that's got a great education, but I'm pretty streetwise. I understand a good thing when I see it, And this is a good thing. This is a very good thing. It should be more commonplace. It should be, dare I say, easier to do. And people should be sort of flocking towards you to look at how you can help. The cost, by the way, is irrelevant, because what you can lose is a lot more.
There's also the point about me. First of all, I'm not a solicitor. Second of all, I have an unbroken record of every single trademark that I have submitted for registration has been accepted. How many solicitors can say that? I'm not sure how many can, actually, because, and I'm not blaming anyone, but I'm just saying that there are people out there who will take whatever it is you've got and throw it at the wall and see if it sticks. That is not my approach. If I consider what you've got irregistrable, and this is a word I made up, let me write that down. This is my word invention, right? If I consider it to be irregistrable, I am not going to bloody waste your time, money, and energy. Well, it's my energy, but it's your time and your money trying to register it for you, because I can tell like that if I actually can or not register it for you. So why would I be unethical, in my opinion, and try and register it if I think that I can't? Yeah. Why would I even try to do that? That's not who I am.
And that's testament to why you've been successful, because unfortunately there's not many people that when they're challenged with something where they've got either little knowledge of, or you get like a mental block. It happens to be every day. You think, oh, what is it again? And eventually comes to, I'm one of these people, and I learned this a long time ago. If I don't know the answer to something, I'll use this term. Listen, not sure, I'll get back to you. Now, everyone should say that in that scenario. Now, with you, it's a little different because you're an expert in your field. But the fact that you can say, after a defined period, I don't know how long it takes for you to make that decision, but you're honest enough to say, no, I can't do that. That's not possible. That's something that it's too early for or whatever. You know what I mean? But there are a lot of people that won't do that. And that's all part of the know, like, and trust that we're all trying to build. We know each other, we like each other, and we're starting to trust each other because we've shared a lot of information. That's how the world works. So if you've got up tomorrow, age 18, you've just left school and college and you want to go out and work, you've got to find people to network with. You've got to find people to work with. You've got to find people to understand how you can help them. And that's part of all those three processes that we build up.
Yeah.
And it's tough because, and this sounds really, really out there. If there was a superpower that I could have, there'd be two. One that I could fly, because I love traveling, but the other one would be to read people's minds. Now, if I had that, can you imagine how dangerous that would be?
Do you know what? Actually, our thoughts do not stay inside our minds as we think they do.
Very true.
Because they are electronic in nature, and they can be read by other people.
Yeah.
So you can read minds to a certain extent. I mean, don't forget, you've probably experienced either with your lovely wife or somebody you've been thinking of that person and suddenly they call you up.
Yeah.
How does that happen? That is because you're reading each other's minds. Mm-hmm. So it does happen. We just don't think that we're able to. So people don't do it that much. But
which is very interesting, and you're quite correct. I was driving down a main arterial road a few months ago, and I turned around to Mandy and I said to her, "Do you know something? You don't see many red cars, do you?" We had a white one, I think, at the time. I mean, that bit's irrelevant. And guess what happened a minute later? I couldn't see these; they just appeared from the distance, and there was a dozen of them, one after another. And I thought, oh, all right, that shut me up. I use that example because she's in the car industry, because her answer was, I see them every day. She walks past them. But that does happen. You know, like you say, you think of someone and they call you out of the blue. You think, what's that about?
Yeah.
And we use that term, I knew you were going to say that. I mean, we've all at some point probably either thought it or spoken those words out loud. So this is kind of sort of links back to the question, is intellectual capital an asset? Yes, I think it can be.
I definitely think it is.
Yeah, I think it is. And how you deal with that is vital in terms of protecting it.
Absolutely, because if you leave it like on the table, so to speak, if you have been inspired to create this thing and you do not protect it, say you wanted to have somebody help you manufacture it, but you have no protection. So when you go to these people, they can then swipe your concept from you.
Yeah.
Because the moment you share it, of course, depending on the detail of the sharing, but still they might be intelligent enough to grasp what it is that you're sharing with them. And if you have no non-disclosure agreements, if you have nothing in place, why wouldn't they? They'd be stupid not to. If they see the value of your creation and you have no protection, it would be almost stupid of them not to do that.
Yeah.
And so it is imperative, honestly, to have protection in place. And it can be as little as a non-disclosure agreement. It can be copyright clauses on the material that you bring with you. You know, there are so many aspects of it. It isn't just a registered trademark. It isn't just the patent you've taken out. There are so many things. And there are some of the products that are out there that are so massively valuable. I mean, when you get a new iPhone, for instance, it isn't just the phone itself. It's also the packaging, which is referred to as trade dress.
Yeah.
You know, all of these things are things that these people put an awful lot of detail and thought and care and love. Actually, it is St. Valentine's Day today, so let's have the word love in here as well. Because of course they put love into it. If they didn't, they wouldn't even create it in the first place, would they?
No.
So if you do love what it is that you do, honor yourself and honor that thing by considering, how can I best protect it? Is it a trademark registration? Is it a non-disclosure agreement? Is it what's it called? Copyright clauses?
Yeah.
Or is it a conglomerate of all of these things? Because all of the intellectual property goes hand in hand and forms a stronger shield. You seem distracted.
It's okay. I've got something that's on the screen. It's gone now. It's a little bug thing. I was worried about it coming across the camera. It's gone. Yes, I concur. I mean, the Apple example's perfect. You know, people just go, and I've done it. In fact, I don't do it so much now. They get the thing out of the box, whether it's an iPhone, iPad, whatever. They just want to use the gadget. They want to crack on and get use out of what they got. But it's all the other bits and pieces that come with it. You know, read the terms and conditions. No one does that. They just tick it, sign on, do whatever it is that you need to do. And again, it all comes back to that 4-letter word, risk. We have to evaluate risk. There's risk in everything we do. Crossing the road, eating a meal out, there's risk.
There's even risk in this live, because my laptop keeps flickering and I don't know, if it's going to crash on me or not. I have no idea what's going on. I have this disk cleaner tool that's open and I'm trying to slowly, while we're talking, clean up my laptop, but there is the risk of it actually closing down on me, which I hope it won't do, of course. But that's another risk. You know, there's risk everywhere. And most of the time we don't consider it because it's part of being alive that there's risk, you know. So it can also be debilitating if we focus too much on risk.
Absolutely.
Because that's when it becomes anxiety.
Yeah.
So it's about finding the proper balance so that we can move forward. I mean, there's risk in using AI, you know, in our businesses, because if we just copy and paste it, can we claim that as our own original content? Maybe not, you know. So be mindful, be careful, be aware, you know, be attentive.
It's like you were talking about NDAs a little while ago, and I think we had this conversation online a couple of weeks back where I said to you, look, you know, years back, if you're dealing with, say, somebody based in China, using them as an example, a lot of those guys would consider back then that an NDA isn't worth the paper it's written on. You know, it's exactly. And you know, it's this is not my thought. This is stuff that I hear people saying. Yeah, it's not worth the paper it's written on. But that's a typical example of where one needs to really look deep into. I don't want to get exposed. I don't want to, you know, all I want to do is carry out something that I believe and love, or love and believe in, whichever way around you want to put that. And I need a partner to work with. So I need to get that trust. And albeit a piece of paper with a couple of signatories, that's a good start, obviously. But people that believe otherwise, I don't quite understand what's in their head, to be fair. And, you know, you laughed out loud, which is a perfect example of, you probably agree with what I'm saying. And it's so, it's so important for, you know, people that say that, probably naive, might have had a problem themselves, have had their fingers burnt, and it's perhaps their way of dealing with it. But learn from it. That's all I would say. And you know, if they can speak with people like you that can explain, actually, that's not as you see and understand it. This is how it would work. And I know that's something that you're really good at. That's got to be endorsed.
Yeah. And the thing about know, like, and trust factor is that even though we are skeptical by nature, we also have to allow the other person the benefit of the doubt. And if they continue to break our trust in any way, shape, or form, then that is a red flag going up. You know, something is not working here. Something is wrong. Something is whatever it is. So it's about learning to understand what the situation is. Am I really at risk here? Or is the creation that I have made at risk? And if my creation is at risk, what can I do to protect it? If it's myself who's at risk, what can I do to protect me? So we always have to assess the situation, and we always have to, I'm waffling out on a tangent.
No, it's interesting. I've got something I've never asked you this actually, but prior to having trademark, copyright, etc. protection, what did people used to do?
So, it's interesting that you're asking about that, because I've just written a post that is going out on the 2nd of March, which is a little bit about Queen Anne. I have vast admiration for Queen Anne, and I was lucky enough to take a really, really, really excellent photo of the statue of Queen Anne that is standing outside of St. Paul's Cathedral. Queen Anne is the one that we can thank for the copyright legislation that we have. And she's the one who gave us the first intellectual property legislation. And beforehand, there wasn't actually much going on with regard to trademarks and patents and stuff like that. Maybe patents, I'm not entirely sure about patents, but copyright was completely different because it was to do with certain entities having the right to write and publish and distribute books. It wasn't normal. It wasn't possible for you and me to have done that back in the day. And the Queen, who was before Anne, if I remember correctly, her name was Mary, and she was becoming increasingly unpopular. So there was a lot of stuff going on around at that time where she needed to ensure that critical publications weren't published. Because back in the day, everything surrounding the court was intrigue and who was going to take over when and where and why and how, and that all changed with Queen Anne, you see. So she changed the legislation. I can't remember off the top of my head, but this is just what I remember from writing that post. It's going out, as I say, on the 2nd of March. So do look out for that. But it's really, really interesting because she's the one who helped people be able to publish books and distribute books. And back in the day also, there was a thing about cheap books being imported from Ireland. They didn't want that. Isn't that interesting?
It is. And moving it right up to modern times, if it wasn't for Queen Anne, we wouldn't have Amazon. Get your head around that. That's crazy.
How does that how do you explain that?
Well, you know, Amazon famously started off as a you know, it was a source for books. You know,
yes, that's correct. I remember that.
If you strip back right to their early days, and this is the really interesting thing about, again, how important the services that you offer is to basically anything, and especially technology. I mean, other than our data and probably our lives and time, the next most valuable asset is tech. Well, if you've got a tech idea, bloody well protect it, because if you don't, somebody will come out and steal that idea from you. We've been talking recently about tokenization, crowdfunding, and how that's going to work with technology. Now, the company that I'm involved in have already got a trademark. They've got their bits and ducks in line. They have to.
Well done them.
They have a series of smart people that work for them that have pushed us forward, and you've got to protect that. But what I do understand is, I don't know whether that's happened in their case, but somebody that they know earlier on in their careers would have not had that, and would have had their idea, which was great in concept, was fabulous, could have made them billions, but someone else has jumped on it and taken it away. I mean, you've told me about many examples, without naming people, which is fine, about how it can impact on people's lives if they don't get the right protection in place.
Because all of the people who rely on that person who's had this massive, magnificent, beautiful, wonderful idea, they get affected, you know. And yesterday, you saw me repost that thing about Fashion Week starting. Look at how much Fashion Week impacts us all. And we think, oh, maybe, you know, fashion is just haute couture. No, it isn't. Fashion, the haute couture, you know, the trends in that trickles down everywhere. You know, they have massive influence on the colors we wear, on the cuts and the shapes and the fabrics, everything. It's so interesting. And And it actually represents a massive part of the what's it called, bruttonationalproduct in Danish. I can't remember the English word for that right now, but it's the whole economic system in a country that gets affected by everything that we do. It's not just the fashion week, it's also the tech, it's also, all the things that we do have an impact on each other. And if something fails, it's the domino effect, because a lot of other things get affected by that. So the more we respect each other and love each other, for want of a better word, if we take care of each other and protect each other, and the reason why my profession exists is because people don't actually respect each other. So I'm here to help ensure that whatever it is you've created, I'm putting a shield of protection up in front of that for you, so that you can stay in your zone of genius. Your zone of genius is all the technology that's happening out there. Say that you had your own company and you had no sort of protection in place. I would say to you, Dave, do be careful what it is that you do. But because you're working with other people who already know and understand about this, I don't need to remind you of that.
Yeah.
But if you didn't, I would definitely be saying to you, be careful, be mindful. Think about protecting.
It's really interesting. As you were sort of talking about that, I remember, a couple of decades ago at least, I was working for McDonald's.
Yeah.
And we sat down, we had a managers meeting, and we were talking about how we could not necessarily improve our services, but cut down on costs and things like that. And simple things like rubbish, waste disposal was costing them a fortune. And as we were chatting, one of my bosses came in the door and sat down with us. I hadn't seen him for a while. It was good to catch up. Very long story short, we worked together many, many years ago when we were kids. And I just said, why don't we come up with an initiative where we can recycle? No, it's very hard to do. We're going to have to do that. I said, well, let's do it. Why don't we just do it? So have a bin for the plastic. Have a bin where they can chuck the liquids away. Have a bin where all the other stuff goes that can't be recycled. Have one for all the paper. And the argument was this.
And how about one for food waste?
Yeah. The argument was this. Yeah, but the customers won't do it. I said, they will. They will. And around about that time, I can't remember if it was before or after, but it was around about the time when the recycling logo came out, and it was huge. Everyone was trying to do their bit for the environment. Going to any McDonald's in the UK, they've all got a way of recycling. Now, I'm not saying that was my idea, but I was thinking about it way back then. Now, there's an example of I've given them something. I'm not particularly bothered whether it was me and a few others or whether it was just me. I don't care about that. But the fact that it's done some good is going back to your question, was that an intellectual capital? Does that fall into that asset? Yes, I suppose it does.
I think it does. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And what conglomerates tend to do, and again, I'll use the example of McDonald's, was the Filet-O-Fish. When that first came out, was an idea in the 60s where this chap said, I don't really eat meat, I like fish. Can we work out a way where we can parcel it up and have it as a sandwich? And lo and behold, that's what they did. And up until relatively recently, laws in the UK stated that you couldn't sell fish on a Sunday. I don't know why.
On a Sunday?
Yeah. It's a really old law. I think obviously it's been relaxed now. So we couldn't provide Filet-O-Fish on the menu in McDonald's. It's crazy to think back now, but the good thing is how far we've travelled and how much more tolerant we are of certain things. someone who makes these rules up has obviously sat down and thought, well, that's crazy. Get rid of it. What's the point? We're stifling innovation. We're stifling growth.
Yeah.
To some sectors, it would be good. To others, many others, it would be, yeah, why? I agree. So having that thought as well, again, goes back to your question. That was an intellectual capital.
It was.
Yeah.
It certainly was.
You know, and now that you can do, I mean, I don't eat fish and chips much, but where I live, we've got 3 or 4 places where years ago they wouldn't be open on a Sunday, and now they are virtually everywhere, and certainly in Britain. I can't comment for the world, but this is the interesting thing about when someone wakes up and has that eureka moment. You know, sometimes stuff that was set in stone years ago has to change, and sometimes it needs to be kept for good reason. But eventually, way past our lifetime, when our successors sort of come on board, they'll look at other things and go, yeah, we need to adapt. We need to adapt, adopt, think a little bit more outside the box, help each other for the better goods, and so on. Because life's too short and there's too many complications shoved in our way. Let's get rid of the greed so we can enable everybody to get a fair slice of the cake. Get that sorted out. Poverty will be diminished.
And you know what? There is so much money on this planet that, you know, we can distribute it to everybody. But the thing is, those that are poor today, they may not actually manage to keep hold of the money that is shared with them, because it's about deservability. So if they don't think that they deserve it, they'll get rid of it. It's that simple. And the people who believe that they deserve it, they'll get more. Yeah. That's how it works. It's crazy, but it's true. And we can't change that for people. They have to realize themselves that they are completely and utterly worthy.
Yes, and the same is said in reverse, isn't it? You're gonna and you have got people that always want more. You know, we're all vain at the end of the day. We want more people looking at what we're doing. We want to help more people. We want to be the good for all, for want of a better phrase. You know, unfortunately, it's not possible. We've got so many things and so many balls to juggle. Where do you stop? But it's interesting, this debate, you know, in terms of what we feel is and isn't an asset. But we're not powered to sort of bring that to the front line unless people officially say, yes, today, baked beans, for argument's sake, which is an asset, is an asset in such and such class. You know, it's very, very interesting how something I never really give much thought several years ago in terms of an idea. How many times have you spoken with someone and they've said something and you've gone, oh, that's a good idea. Now, the trademark expert, the copyright expert, all these experts in that protection side of insurance are thinking, it is. Let's devise a policy where we can protect it because it needs it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's it. You know, insurance policies, other than the fact that they're written, they're invisible, really. They're a set of terms and conditions that at a press of a button, you've got a view to it and so forth.
Yeah.
But at some point, they were an idea as well.
Yeah. And the thing is, we can't protect an idea because it stays inside somebody's head. And I know I said earlier that we can read minds. However, to protect something that you had the idea to create, it needs to take some sort of form. So it can be that you recite a poem. It can be that you paint a picture. It can be that you take a photograph. It can be that you write a book. It can be that you write a film manuscript and have it turned into a film. You know, there are so many ways to express ourselves. And at the end of the day, it comes back to honoring the inspiration that you had, because there is nothing new under the sun. Everybody says that. And yet your way of expressing yourself, your thumbprint will give it that unique twist. And that is what we protect. We do not protect the generic.
The other thing as well that springs to mind, and I love my music, so you'll get bands that come up like, say, the Beatles, and nobody, including themselves, really knew that they were going to be as big as they were. I mean, biggest band ever. But I don't know, I haven't got anything specific in this example, but I've got a feeling that at some point one, two, three of those four would have had an argument where, look, I'm the writer, this is the percentage I'm getting because it's the most important role in their opinion. And poor old Ringo Starr, for instance, he could have been the one that was left out in terms of how he would be remunerated in this example.
Yeah.
You know, with bands, that happens a lot, where you've got people that are more powerful characters than the rest.
I mean, look at Queen, for instance.
Yeah.
I don't know how much truth there is to that situation at their solicitors, where they suddenly decide that instead of a song being written by Fred or Brian or Deaky, you know, it's just by Queen, and the royalties are split 4 ways equally. Yeah. I don't know how much truth there is in that, but it probably is true to some extent. You know,
well, that's the right thing to do. I suppose the issue arises is when one of those members gets up and leaves and goes on to do other things,
or Crocs, Popsy's clocks. I meant to say, you know, like the way Freddie did.
Yeah, you know, and it's not just applicable to Queen. You know, you've got so many different industries where mum and dad have started said company. It gets to a compass point, like the Walmart family. They built up a massive empire, and the one thing that is for certain is at one point we're all going to die. So if they hadn't had the foresight to put protection in place that not just protects them, but their legacy as well, that's where your stuff really does kick in.
The legacy, and because the longevity is important for the legacy. Yeah. So that's why it's so important to remember to register your trademark, or to take out the patent, or to register the design, or to register the trade dress. You know, all of these things go hand in hand. So the more protection you've got, the stronger your shield of protection gets.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
And I suppose as well, Celeste, when you've got a business that's not like a fledgling, but it's got some years experience, has got patent in place, it's got trademarks, got copyright, the whole everything, they're more of an attractive proposition for people that want to fund them, should they want better growth, than one that haven't.
Yes, and if you don't have a registered trademark, when you invite in an investor, they can and will perform a hostile takeover. I've heard this. And you do not want that, because what are you left with? Zero such. Yes, okay, they haven't got you. That is true. But still, you will have to build everything back up again from scratch.
Yeah.
And you will have to use a completely different name. Who wants that? Yeah. Honestly.
I saw a program recently. It's like one of these little mini series that I like watching on Netflix called What If. If you've got access to it, watch it. It's brilliant.
I don't have access to Netflix, unfortunately.
That's a shame. But it's about this VC played by Renée Zellweger, and she had this almost airtight contract. But one of the things that she overlooked was the the protection side of it, if I remember right. But there are many examples of that where people think they've got absolutely everything in place, but if you leave a tiny little gap, your exposure rate can be huge. And I remember you've told me about examples of where again, great examples with no one mentions specifically, but how it can be damaging when you don't.
Yeah, and I've personally experienced somebody very, very close to me asking someone to write a contract for them, and what was left out of that contract was what would happen if the contract got broken, or you know, they didn't uphold their end of the bargain, so to speak. Broken sounds so stupid. That's just but anyway, and that part was lacking from that contract, which meant that the contract was completely bloody worthless. And these people were tied to this contract with that third party they couldn't get out of for 2 fucking years, which is a horrible thing to experience. And if they had considered asking me, I would have said, look, we need to put in a little clause of what will happen if the other party doesn't uphold their end of the bargain.
Yeah.
So that if the contract is infringed upon or broken or whatever word you want to use, you then have the legal capacity to slap them. You know, you won't do it physically, don't get me wrong, but you will have the legal capacity to do it. You know, I have had to write a contract for myself in regards to a situation, and I did put in a clause of what would happen if the other person didn't uphold their end of the bargain.
Yeah.
Which is why I've been able to take this particular situation to court. It is so vital. And yes, that's my intellectual capital because I wrote the contract.
When if one didn't go with your services, whether it's through you or another, that's sort of irrelevant. But if someone didn't go through that, what I'm trying to get in my head is how often do these court cases happen? How damaging can they be? Can you explain that a little bit in detail for us?
Well, they can be so damaging that you can't get your business off the ground. I mean, don't forget, I have this really, really excellent example. I was in the process of registering a trademark for my very first client, as it happens, and he suddenly came back to me saying, look, there's somebody infringing upon my rights. And I said, yes, okay. So can you provide me with proof of use and how long you've been using your trademark for, and da-da-da-da? Because in Denmark, you establish a right the moment you start utilizing what will be your trademark. And so he did give me all this information and also the information of the infringer. So I contacted the infringer, and they hadn't done due diligence. And their dreams were bloody well shattered because I was in the right and they were in the wrong.
Yeah.
And my client's business keeps going from strength to strength, and theirs never got off the ground because it hinged on that particular expression or word or name or whatever you want to call it. And they hadn't done due diligence, and they didn't realize somebody else was actually using it. So, whoops, that was just the end of their dream, completely shattered.
Would you say that obviously
it happens every day, every minute of every day?
Yeah, so it's a regular occurrence. Due diligence is key. I suppose the other factor would be timing as well, because I can relate to a similar example where this particular crypto coin wanted to launch. There's this term called a ticker, which is basically 3 letters to abbreviate what the actual product is. So, for example, BTC is Bitcoin, and this particular coin wanted to have three specific letters. They were about to launch, and those letters were taken literally the day before they got on board. So had they been above the game, they'd have done what they could and all the rest of it. So a lot of it is being in the right place at the right time. So I suppose if there's some guidance, if I can call it that, for people out there that are on the peripheral or thinking about it, act quick, because if they leave it too late, someone could jump in. Yeah.
I mean, even my book will give you a little bit of an understanding of all the intellectual property. It will not solve everything for you because it's a book and I wrote it years ago and it needs updating. Of course it does. I'm not saying it doesn't, but it will give you an insight and it will give you an idea. Okay, what is it I actually have? Of course, because I'm a trademark specialist, the questionnaire at the back of the book is geared towards trademarks. That makes total sense. But you will still be able to, after you've read it, have an insight into what is it that I've actually got here. Is it something that needs a trademark? Is it something that needs a patent taken out to protect it? Is it something that needs more than just one type of protection? Many things will need more than one type of protection. Let me just say that off the cuff. But you know, it's an insight into intellectual property, so it can help. You know, and just knowing, just following me on LinkedIn and on YouTube, and perhaps even on Instagram, will give you massive value because I share platinum nuggets, you know, and these conversations that you and I are having are packed to the hilt with platinum nuggets.
Yeah. No, you're dead right. There's lots of, a lot of people take it for granted, don't they? They take a lot for granted. But
and we don't take anything for granted.
Yeah, they shouldn't. When it comes to that compass point, it can really give them a kick in the seat of their pants.
Yeah, it can.
Interesting. Okay.
We've been walking for more than 1 hour now.
Yeah, I know. I've just seen the time. I don't really have much more to add. I think we've covered a lot of.
We've gone out of so many different tangents in this, but it's so interesting, and intellectual capital is so many things. So that's why we've done that. And if you've just joined us, don't forget that you can watch it on replay, either on LinkedIn or on YouTube. Yeah. And it's been an absolute pleasure to have you again, because it's a completely different energy when I have somebody else to talk to bounce content off of. Yeah, and sure. You are throwing questions at me. So it gets completely different. And that's why these conversations become so long, because we feed on each other's energy and we feed on each other's knowledge. That's why I really appreciate this time that you're giving me here, Dave. It's so invaluable to me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
So how does someone find you on Instagram, etc., on all these social medias that you're on?
The Empress of Trademarks is the easiest thing to search for.
Yeah. Okay.
It is not a registered trademark because Empress is generic, and so are trademarks. Yeah. So I'm not even going to try and register that because I'm not going to waste my own time or energy and money. But yeah, search for the Empress of Trademarks. That's the easiest way to find me. How do people find you if they want to know about the latest in technology, blockchain, AI, all of these things, Dave?
Oh, I've got the best way is to do a search for me and my name on
which is on here. It's Dave McCall.
Probably LinkedIn is the easiest route. I've got a Facebook page, personal one. I've got about 5 different Twitter accounts. I'm on TikTok and Instagram. Where else? I've started to use it because my product isn't visible, because I educate. I haven't got the content to put on there yet, but that will come. But I also have a website which is mxrb.io, really nice and short and simple. And that gives people an insight. MXRB. M for mother, X for X-ray, R for Robert, B for Bertie.io.
Is this correct?
That's the one. That's the one.
Okay.
It's a new website. It's not quite finished yet, but it gives a little bit of information about what we do and so forth. But it's educationally led. We educate businesses and people that are looking at emerging tech. So quick run through blockchain, NFTs, smart contract, Web3, artificial intelligence, and all the things that go together to make the metaverse, which is augmented, extended and virtual realities in layman's. So that's what we're about. And of course, crypto, because the three of us that partnered up to form a business, we're all from a crypto background. So yeah, I'd love to hear from anyone.
Yeah, me too. So thank you so much for joining us today. And we will be back next Tuesday.
Yes.
And I'm going to end the broadcast now.